Well, good evening from a rather wet and cold London. This is the last session of the first day of the conference of WAF 2021. And we're delighted to be joined by the supporters of the Lisbon Prize, Creon. I'm here in the studio with my co-presenter, Jeremy Melvin, and we're joined by Marnik Skroyan, who's Sales Director at Creon. Now, we're awarding a prize for an exemplary project from Lisbon because, of course, we should have been in Lisbon this week at the live event of World Architecture Festival. And we do plan to be there next year, and we plan to repeat the exercise. We began a sort of city prize when the festival was based in Amsterdam, and for a couple of years we had great pleasure in presenting an award there. So we were looking this year for something that had been submitted in the WAF Awards and which was really summing up some aspect of the city, some sort of approach to architecture, and some cultural as well as architectural connection to the host city for the festival. Now, of course, as it were, a virtual host city. And we were delighted to find a project which we thought fitted the bill. And I'm going to ask Marnix now to announce the winner. We will then get a presentation of the project, and then we'll have a brief discussion about it. So, Marnix, over to you.
Thanks, and good evening, everybody, or good morning around the world. The selection of the Lisbon Prize it's an honor for us, for Creon, to sponsor it after the Amsterdam Prize 2 years ago. And it's indeed here with my honor to announce who the Lisbon Prize winner is, and that is the United Lisbon International School by the people on this call, Capinha Lopez Consulting, and the Elegant Group behind. Congratulations, parabéns.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
congrats for a wonderful job done. From our perspective, looking at the presentation you have made, being a lighting company, a particular compliment to you and the team for the attention you have paid to the use of natural light, in particular in the library. Delighted to hear that the pupils, the students, enjoy that space very much, in the most, or at most, thanks to the use of natural light, contributing to their comfort and well-being. Great to see that. Congratulations once again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this award. First of all, good evening, and thank you for this award. My name is Rita. I'm an architect and I work for Elegant Group, also known as Martinel Group. I have here with me today Chitra Stern, who is the CEO of Elegant Group, and Eduardo Capinha Lopes, the architect and author of this project. I'm going to give a brief overview of the project, and then I'll pass the word on to Chitra. So, United Lisbon International School is actually the first completed building of a new campus for education and entrepreneurship, located right here, here in Park of Nations, but where the festival was supposed to take place, which is interesting. It has an area of 50,000 square meters, and it will include student and teacher accommodation, office spaces, a sports arena, and a multi-purpose hall. The school, which is at the very heart of this campus, opened in September 2020. The school is actually it's a 7,300 renovation project, which had to be done with a particular sensibility, considering the building's historical value as a testimony of industrial heritage in Lisbon, because it formerly hosted the Pasteur Institute and had been awarded already an architecture award for its facade in 1958. With this context in mind, the project aimed to create a meaningful dialogue between the existing spaces and new elements, while at the same time processing the complex demands of adapting it into a modern school building. This is something we believe Eduardo did very well, and we're very proud of. And also, oh yes, here you see in this slide, you can see the school here in the bottom part with the outdoor areas, and you see a little bit the context, Park of Nations with the Vasco da Gama Bridge up ahead. One of the things that is quite special about this school is actually this vast outdoor area, which has around 6,500 square meters, includes sports fields and playgrounds. This is quite unique in the context of Lisbon. And one of the things that we were also quite careful in doing is the transport system, because it has been organized underground to avoid creating traffic in the main road during peak times, which is normally a problem in the city of Lisbon. Here you can see the sports fields and the school building and the early childhood area, which is one of the preferred areas of the school. Here, this is a site plan. It more or less shows how it integrates the outdoor areas, and I'm just going to quickly explain how the project is organized. The building is divided into two wings, with a central space marked by an inner open courtyard. On the ground floor, we have the main entrance, the science and art rooms, and the canteen. On the first floor, we have classrooms on both wings. And then on the second floor, we have classrooms on the north wing and the library on the south. The library is a space that is also much loved by everyone, as has been noted already in this session. Chitra, I don't know if you'd like to,
Yep.
to jump in.
Sure. Thank you so much, Rita. And thank you to the judges, the jury, and thank you, Creon, for supporting this session and your kind comments. Eduardo Capina Lopes and ourselves, the developers, we're extremely proud to be awarded this award for especially the Lisbon Prize. Thank you very much. It is indeed an honor to be receiving this award. This project has been done with heart and soul, and especially opening last year in the first phase of the pandemic was pretty tough. But we're very proud to report that we've got 300 students on board already. And I'm actually sitting in the school. I arrived in the school. You can't see all the natural light that was referred to earlier, because it's already evening here with daylight savings. So, it's dark outside, but you get a bit of the feel for the entrance of the school. Lots of windows, with the raw ceiling exposed above that Arquitecto Eduardo was, has been explaining about how good it is to keep this industrial and raw feeling also as part of the education for the children, for them to understand what actually goes on behind a building to make it work. So thank you all very much. We're open now to questions, from the panel. I'm sorry I can't see your faces very well because there, now I can see them better. Please go ahead.
And to architect on this project, there were several things that attracted us to the design idea, and I suppose The first is the possibility of reuse and creative reuse of existing buildings. And I think, Jeremy, in recent years, we've noticed a greater concentration of what one might describe not just simply as reuse, but sort of retrofit. So buildings where you're doing more with the existing. You're bringing new energy standards to the party, and you're prolonging the life of something useful.
I think that's right. I mean, it's not just about preservation or conservation of an existing historic piece of fabric. It's actually understanding what that fabric is and what it can do and what it can become. And I think there's a very interesting point that comes from this, and maybe the architect could comment, which is we heard earlier today about the extraordinary imagination that went into creating daylight conditions for the Tate Gallery in St Ives. And I wonder what adaptation was necessary to the existing building to get daylight into a school, which is presumably different in its requirements to the factory that it was before.
Yeah, perhaps one or more of the team could comment on that. This question about getting light into what was probably quite a tough building to deal with.
Eduardo, would you like to comment? I'll say a few words and then maybe I'll pass over to you. Yes?
Yes, absolutely.
So what the first phase of this project, I mean, the whole project is a rehabilitation project or a renovation, regeneration project. One part of it is actually the former Louis Pasteur Institute as well, and then it became a private university. The facades had to be protected. There were windows, but what we did was put in extra windows into the corridors as well, which brought a lot of natural light throughout the building and gave a lot of transparency in the classrooms. I mean, I welcome you to visit the United Lisbon International School when you're next in Lisbon. Nothing replaces seeing it live, obviously. Yes. So the light, we made the windows much more energy efficient, and the classrooms were made larger than they were initially. We spared no cost in actually gutting all the interiors and making new classrooms. But perhaps a good time to hand over to Eduardo for your comment on sort of this regeneration project and making it into the best international school in Lisbon. Eduardo.
Ashita, thank you. So my first word to thank you, the World Architecture Festival, for the award. I think you will enjoy visiting the building, hopefully as much as I enjoyed designing it. It was definitely a challenge because this is a listed building, and it was actually awarded so a few years ago, and it's a listed building, as I said. So we needed to be quite creative, and even to have some exceptions to adapt it to classrooms. Of course, there are other spaces that were easier, but by the end, also the natural light was part of it, but also artificial light was really part of it also. So by the end, we have a mixed-use spaces, and we even got some special in the corridors. We have some, so you will when you visit it, and it's the interior shows it. The way we dress the light coming into the corridors from the classrooms. So and then we have big windows, and so we have different doors and different. So we dress it completely different. It's actually it was quite a challenge. So thank you, and that's it for the moment.
Thank you. And Jeremy, one of the things that we've noticed about this sort of project is sometimes the difficulty of dealing with facades, where you have historic protection. But of course, the energy and insulation standards that we now expect probably exceed what we were looking at in the 1950s. And I wonder how that question of energy efficiency and carbon emission was sort of calculated and worked through in the course of the design of the project.
Shall I start and hand over to Eduardo?
Yes.
Eduardo, would you like to start this time?
No, go ahead.
Yeah. So obviously, with any renovation project, it is a challenge, as you correctly pointed out, especially for a building from the 50s. We worked with specialists in the field, and we actually went for a BREEAM certification to bring the energy efficiency of the building up, not just through quality of windows, but also the walls, how the whole building, the air circulation works. We have a good quality of air circulation in the building. So we as developers, with the architect, worked very hard on achieving this BREEAM certification, which is difficult to achieve with a regeneration rehabilitation project. It's called rehabilitation here in Portugal, but I would say in English it's really renovation regeneration. So Eduardo.
Yeah. So back to the beginning when you mentioned there about the how we reuse old buildings now.
Yes.
It's actually a big challenge also even to a promoter, because usually reusing today is more expensive than new build, and that's for sure in the moment. And this building was quite a fantastic example of the owners and the promoter. Oh, they really addressed this, and they were ready to reuse this existing building and pay for what happened after, because this is actually it became a very expensive rehabilitation, not only to match these, so let's say the light issues, but also and even more challenge the quality of life in his interior, because really this was a lab, and we have listed facades, and so no doubt that new technologies were a big part of this. Um, we are now developing the nearby buildings. So as Rita said about this educational hub, that this school is part of it, and it's interesting. We are now facing also new challenges, because if this was a lab, the other ones were factories, and by the end, it's a cost. It's a huge cost to rehabilitate buildings. It's a challenge. It's what needs to be done in our cities now, um, but it takes special promoters, and takes and thank you, Shitra, and thank you, Roman, for letting me part of this, because it was really a challenge. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and
Thank you.
a vision that Eduardo is able to really understand and help us implement. So thank you, Eduardo. And we'll be submitting the rest of the education hub in a separate submission in in the future when it's done, and you will see that it's yet another. Hopefully a big milestone in the city, a renovation project.
Well, we look forward to that. And as you were speaking there, I was thinking, Jeremy, about this trade-off that we're seeing the whole time between what are often expensive projects to rehabilitate buildings, especially where the use is being substantially changed. But on the other hand, you can get a payback over a very long period once the building's in use. The embodied energy used to create the new thing, the longer it lasts, the more that kind of plays out. everything seems to be a question of balance between money and carbon and construction efficiency and longevity.
Yes, well, of course, if you're reusing a structure, and most structures can be reused if you're just talking about structure, on position, in a good position as carbon is concerned. Difficulty comes when you're trying to adapt a structure with its grid or its form or whatever system it's using to a completely different use. And then, of course, you start to come up against, can you make it work for the whatever the use is? In this case, education. Probably much of the use that you need in, or the spaces you need in an educational building are quite big spaces. So maybe reusing an industrial building for that works better than it would for certain other types of use where you might have to compartmentalize much more.
Because I think one of the things we liked about this project was that so frequently you find that redundant industrial buildings get turned into an art centre or a gallery or a museum. There seems to be this relationship between contemporary art and into redundancy. Here it's quite different. It's about a new use, which is something very active and very positive, and very much about the future, as education inevitably is. And I think that gave us a good feeling about the nature of this project.
Absolutely, and it shows that buildings can be used for all sorts of purposes other than just showing artworks, and however valid that may be. But I think it's part of what I think we're beginning to see is a real revitalization in Lisbon. A city which has lots of attractions, but which is acquiring more and more cultural and educational kudos.
Well, I wonder if we could invite the team to comment on the impact that this project has had on the city, because it's a significant project, and the fact that it was completed in very difficult circumstances because of the pandemic. I imagine that it's sort of seen as a vote of confidence in Lisbon and its international reputation.
It certainly has, and thank you very much for bringing that up. The previous mayor, who actually was the mayor when we discussed the project and put the whole project into licensing, gave a speech at the inauguration, and he was very, very thankful and grateful that we had brought this project to the fore and actually successfully opened it. International education, this was a big need for the area to attract further foreign direct investment, because offices relocating, headquarters relocating to Lisbon. The Web Summit has been happening here every year since 2016. So for all the strategy that the Lisbon City Hall had and the City of Lisbon had to attract foreign direct investment, foreign families to move here, needed an international school in this area. And that was at the very core of us doing this project. And indeed, these 300 children I was speaking of, 25% are Portuguese families, hence there was a clear pent-up demand in the area for international education for these Portuguese families as well. But 75% come from 30 different countries in the world, and that's what all these are about. We have the flags of the nationalities of the kids in the school, and this has enabled these children to be put in our school and the families to move here for business or to invest in Lisbon. So there is a very clear recognition also from the new mayor. The mayor who was just elected has already visited us and has thanked us publicly and openly, and truly appreciates this project as a revival, not just as a revival of the industrial buildings here, but also contributing to the influx, or the enabler of the influx of further foreign direct investment. And you know, if you look at the map of international schools, for very historical reasons, they all happen in the Cascais area. They were opening in the Cascais area. You know, thank you. And I see that time's up, but you know, it is being recognized as an anchor project for the area. And as we complete the education hub, it's going to further prove that as creators, innovators, you know, companies, tech companies come together into this ecosystem of education in the future.
Well, thank you very much for that, and we look forward to visiting, and we look forward to seeing the next stage of the project. Many thanks once again to Crayon for their support and for being with us this evening at Marnix. And thank you so much, Eduardo, Rita and Chitra, for talking about a marvellous project which is very much in the spirit of World Architecture Festival. We're going to have a short trailer now, and then we'll make some closing remarks at the end of this day. But for the Lisbon Prize team, thank you so much. And from London, good evening.